How you guys doing? This is very important in reference to history. The Royal Protocol in the media is a documentation of my mother and father's estates. It is a documentation that blocks me from giving anything away to any person, even including my own children, if I have children, even though all children that I would have would be illegitimate. I'm 100% bloodline of my mother and father. Any child that I would ever have would never be 100% bloodline of my mother and father. I am the only child of my mother and father. Very important information. Never gave nothing to nobody. Not allowed to sign any documents giving anything to anybody. If I was writing a document, or if they say I had to name somebody in a document, that is illegal. I'm not supposed to name anybody in any document. Like if I filled out an insurance claim or anything like that, I'm not allowed to give nothing away to nobody. So their name, if their name was ever mentioned, is irrelevant, and it's rejected no matter what. These people have terrorized me about Ryan Ray, which is a member of the Ray family, which is one of Ronald Ray's sons. I didn't give him nothing. I'm not allowed to make out an inheritance to nobody, no matter what. Nobody's allowed to tamper with my life. I have a very long lifespan. Anybody trying to injure me must get charged with attempts of murder, no matter what. And a politician cannot pardon any person that ever tried to murder me, or tried to injure me, or stole from me. Government cannot pardon nobody. They may not get the death penalty, but they have to go to prison no matter who they are. It even tells you on Treasury documents, no matter who the person is, if they tried to injure me, they have to serve time in prison. Or if they stole my money, no matter who they are, they have to serve time in jail or prison. If they injured me, no matter what, they have to serve time in prison. They can get charged with attempts of murder. So I'm the last living relative and only child of my parents. Plus, my mother, Doris Duke, had the whole Ray family in court back in the 80s when I was held hostage here. My mother had had Richard Ray in court, Les Ray in court, Ronnie, Robbie, and Nisa in court. My mother had Tasman LaCashew in court. Is that not true? My mother had the Cashew family in court. My mother had Ryan Ray in court. He was a little kid back then, but he was in court too. And my mother said none of them had any ties to me. None of them had any ties to my mother and father's companies or estates. And that's the way the Royal Protocol is written too. So it's all documented no matter where anybody comes from, no matter what time or place, no matter who they are. They have no ties to my mother and father's estates, no matter who they are. I'm the only owner of my mother and father's estates. This is very important in reference to the slander that anybody would have made up to try to steal my mother and father's estates, such as people trying to call me stupid. I was a straight A student. I scored one of the highest scores on the SAT and the I-STEP test in the world, and it still is on record. I'm an athlete, one of the fastest athletes in the world, one of the fastest runners in the world. Look up the time, and the courts have to force it to go public what my fastest running time is. You're not allowed to decrease. They hit me in the mouth. You're not allowed to decrease the amount of my top running speed. It might be way up there. It doesn't matter. You're not allowed to downgrade it. Like if I ran 80 miles an hour for a short distance, that has to be documented. Or if I ran 60 miles an hour or whatever it is, you're not allowed to cover that up. It is obligatory facts of the law that the fastest top speed of my sprint when I have ran has to be on record, and you're not allowed to downgrade it. And somebody said that Dan Reeves from the Denver Broncos, how you doing, Dan? Wonderful acknowledgments, how you doing? And Denver Broncos, that he possibly had a document from the 80s, or when I was little, or younger, back in the 80s, that I ran like 63 miles an hour or something. I'm not sure if he has that document. There might have been a video of them interviewing me at the time. And, he can go ahead and express that on YouTube or on the internet or whichever, Very important. But, in reference to the history of this situation, I did not give nothing away to Ryan Ray or anybody else in the whole world. Anywhere. Didn't give nothing away to nobody. Not allowed to. Even if something was written on a document, Even if it was written in blood, it would not have any merit at all. It would not have any weight of position of any kind. I am the only child of my mother and father, and I'm not allowed to give nothing away to nobody, and nobody's allowed to be trying to injure me or trying to damage my life or future. They're not allowed to block me from living my life, and they're not allowed to be putting their hands on me. They're not allowed to be scarring me. See, there's some people that's damaged my skin and damaged my teeth because they were trying to get their name known as some famous person. See, there's sickos out there in the world. There are people that try to make a name for themselves by trying to steal from me. People trying to damage my life. They think that when they do these abusive activities, they thought they would get some notoriety. Those people have to be prosecuted for their crimes. I had a lot of injuries when I was a little boy from government and bad people trying to steal my mother and father's estates from me. And don't forget the financial standard documents. All 50 states need to have copies of the financial standard documents in reference to what my mother and father had for me. I was born as one of the richest people in the world when I was born. And all 50 states need to know what my benefits are and what my privileges are and how much money I was supposed to have on a daily basis, so they can prosecute other government people and scam artists that are trying to steal my identity and people trying to make false stories to steal my wealth that my parents gave to me, or people trying to steal my accomplishments. Even the Screen Actors Union knows that I did not give nothing away to Ryan Ray. I am the only child of my mother and father. I did not give nothing away to anybody. Not allowed to. So anybody trying to claim that they thought, like if somebody sent me a new car, from some city and state and somebody stole it, and then they said, oh, he gave that to us. I don't give nothing away. I'm not allowed to buy cars for friends. Or those people wouldn't be friends anyways, but I'm not allowed to do shit like that. And everybody knows that. Like if I had a girlfriend and I had my trust funds or revenues, and if I had a girlfriend, we'd go out on dates, but if that relationship ever came to an end, she'd have to give everything back. And it goes into a storage house or something, a storage facility or something, And it gets documented like a museum, like I dated this girl during this time or that time, like in reference to anything. So it's kind of basic information of things. Do not misrepresent. But, in reference to these people, they tried to claim that they thought I gave things away to Ryan Ray. Never gave nothing away to nobody. Ryan Ray is not allowed to be at the movie studios. He's not allowed to be at any of my mother or father's companies. And they even said that somebody had possibly thought that Ryan Ray was one of the gunmen that shot me before. If he was, he gets prosecuted. Anybody trying to cause me bodily harm, I don't know, because he's tied in with Frank and the FBI and CIA or something, I don't know. So you got to look at it like general information to see what's going on. Have nothing to do with Ryan Ray. Have nothing to do with the Ray family. Have nothing to do with Frank Sinatra. And have nothing to do with any of these other people that are tied in with Frank Sinatra. I am the only owner of my mother and father's estates. Anybody trying to stress other people's names, trying to claim that they thought they were inheritors of anything of mine or my mother and father's estates, those people need to get prosecuted for trying to murder me and trying to steal from me. In reference to court cases that I have won in the past, I have not received even one fucking penny or $1 from anywhere. So the court judge has to get prosecuted for conspiring with people that he was funneling money to, such as women that stole sperm and had illegitimate children, and then they tried to steal my monies from my court cases where the court judge had illegally funneled money to those women or those girls, and then the court judge was involved in trying to murder me. I am the only child of my mother and father, 100% bloodline. The estates of my mother and father are protected by 100% bloodline. There won't ever be anybody else in the world that is 100% bloodline. Only me. There will never be, ever, Never signed, never, never gave, never, never sold, never, not, never. I am the only child, forever, of my mother and father. I am the only owner of the companies, forever. Anybody trying to threaten my life, anybody trying to cause me injuries, past, present, or future, must get prosecuted for crimes of attempts of murder. Not allowed to give nothing away. And if anybody sent monies or any information or gifts under the name Mark Ray, I did not receive information. This is too long to be held hostage under the Mark Ray name. My birth name is on television. My birth names are on buildings of companies, of my mother and father's companies. Don't confuse my mother's names with any other person's name and any other person's background either. Do you understand that? In reference to people that are criminals, and then they tried to forge their name and tried to use my family name, and then people tried to confuse their name with my name. Well, my family names are copywritten, so anybody trying to forge or trying to impersonate me must get prosecuted in courts. I'm the only child of my mother and father. I'm the owner of my mother and father's estates. Never signed, never, never gave, never, never sold, never, not, never. These people tried to call me crazy. And these are the people that my mother had sued in court for them kidnapping me and holding me hostage and burning me with satellites. Even back in the 80s, they were burning me with satellites in this fucking neighborhood. Now, the courts have to get prosecuted for financial fraud and holding me hostage in this neighborhood. My mother even built some mansions in Indianapolis. She even built the mansion up on Ditch Road with my money. Like, my mother had built other properties, I guess. And then my mother had built this one mansion with my personal money. And she thought that would stop them from blocking me from my mansions. Now look up the information where that house is at. There's obviously somebody else living in that fucking house. That man does not have a right living in that house, whoever that man is. I was supposed to be living in that house. That's my mother. My mother built that mansion with my money. It was like my allowance or something. Look up the information of the address of that mansion. I don't know who that guy is. I'm not friends with that guy. And that guy has possibly been one of the people that's tried to murder me with satellites. You may not understand anything about satellites, but satellites, they emit microwaves. You may not understand it, and you probably can't comprehend it, but that's your own personal experience. My personal experience is I've been through that shit. I went through that shit back in the 60s and 70s when I was a little boy. I got injured and I was in a coma. I've been in a coma more than once. I'd been shot more than once, obviously. Look how many times I've been shot by these government people. And it even tells you on Treasury documents, if you even aim a weapon at me, they can arrest you. Even if you approach me with a weapon, they can prosecute you. They can spy on certain people to see if they're plotting to murder me. Because my parents owned the most land in America. You understand that, right? And they can record other people and prosecute other people based on what they have tried to say they were trying to do to me. I'm supposed to be protected better than a president. My parents owned more land than the president. So any presidential accusations of anybody that works for the president or works for anybody in government that tries to accuse me of anything, they must get prosecuted for picking a fight and trying to murder me. I'm supposed to be protected better than the president. My parents owned more land in America and employed lots of people in America. This is not a communist country. The government is not allowed to be a communist government. It's not allowed to be a socialism government. And it's not allowed to be a conformity government either. America has freedom laws. That doesn't mean people have a right to be touching me or people hurting me, claiming they were expressing their freedom. No, you have to, that's within your own person, your own body. Once you start touching other people's bodies, government man, and start doing things to other people's bodies, you have to get prosecuted. That's not your legal freedom to be grabbing and hurting other people. I'm the only child of my mother and father, and you're not. Didn't give nothing away to nobody in the Ray family or any other family. I'm the only child of my mother and father. I'm the only company owner. And this satellite man has been terrorizing me about Ryan Ray all these years, claiming, oh, you should have thought about that. He thought you gave things to Ryan Ray. No, it did not. And I've made videos saying I didn't give nothing away to nobody. These people have tried to slander my character in every way. And these people need to get prosecuted. And Frank was tied in with Ryan Ray, and I guess some politicians were, and they were trying to steal my mother and father's estates. You know, the activity of these people is just fucking ridiculous. And they were involved in trying to steal my penis. They were involved in trying to steal my sperm. And these people trying to communicate Ryan Ray's name, my mother had the Ray family in court. My mother even had the Ray family in court before Ryan Ray was ever born. And the fact that him being one of their relatives, he would not have any way of claiming anything no matter what anybody ever wrote on paper. Do you understand that? He is part of the Ray family. I am not from the Ray family. They've held me hostage under this Mark Anthony Ray name all these years. Do you understand that? Even after my mother had delivered to Indianapolis courts, or the police station, she had delivered a driver's license with my birth name on it. I have kind of a lengthy birth name because I have to carry all the names of my mother and father and grandparents because I'm the only child. I'm the only bloodline, 100% bloodline. So, you know, in reference to these people trying to make up these lies, these government people trying to connect themselves, they're choking me right here. I'm about to cough right here. They're hitting me right there. It'll take a second. 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See? They're choking me. And check to see if that came from the Indianapolis Police Department. And look to see if my mother bought the Indianapolis Police Department building back in the 80s. And check to see if my mother bought property up in Geist Reservoir. See what other places in Indianapolis. See, when they held me hostage, my mother came over and bought up a lot of stuff for my protection. And my father had built things back here, and my grandfathers had built things in Indiana and in all 50 states back in the 1800s. Because my grandfather's was building property in all 50 states back in early years. Even before the 1800s or something. Yet my great-grandfathers too, I guess. So you have to look up that information. But don't forget, didn't give nothing away to nobody. Not allowed to fund any political party. I am not allowed to be donating monies to any campaign. So when these people stole monies that people tried to send to me and they tried to funnel it into their illegal campaign funding, meaning like they stole monies that people tried to send to me and they tried to put it in their campaign money, those people have to go to court and explain their theft of monies. They've been funding their political parties by stealing my fucking money or something, I don't know. Or when they had stole money from my mother's mansion, they tried to fund their German party of politics or whatever race these people are. And it has to be put in the news. Has to be put on the news networks. It's never signed, never gave, never sold, never. I'm not allowed to fund any politician. Because my father got murdered when he had loaned monies to the American government. And the Treasury was supposed to pay my father the monies. Because these politicians borrowed money from my father back in the 50s and 60s or something. And they never paid it back in the 60s, I guess it was. And they never paid it back. And instead of that, they murdered my father instead of paying my father back the loan that they had borrowed from my father. And there has to be court cases. And my father, when people, like the Democrats borrowed money from my father and the Republicans borrowed money from my father, and neither side paid back any of the fucking money. back in the 60s and 70s. I am the only child of my mother and father. I am the owner of the estates of my mother and father. Always and forever, and that's never going to change. And these people trying to play their tricks, they need to get prosecuted. They're still trying to call me stupid. Let's check their academic history. I've already told you I didn't give nothing away to nobody, and that's the way it's going to be forever. Never signed, never, never gave, never sold, never. Not never. And my mother and father even had specific guidelines in reference to Christmas parties or Christmas events, or in reference to having a girlfriend or something. Like, if I had a girlfriend or a wife, I'm only allowed to spend a certain amount of money. But these people are blocking me from all my fucking money. They've been blocking me from my mother and father's mansions. I'm the only one that has legal right living there as a permanent resident. I live in all my mother and father's mansions. The ones in Chicago and Illinois, the ones in Vegas, I live everywhere my parents had mansions at. And my parents owned more land in other cities and states, but I've been held hostage in Indiana by these government people been holding me hostage. And they need to get prosecuted for their crimes. And today's date is August 6th, 2022, and it's 2:14 p.m. Indianapolis, Indiana time. And in reference to court cases, these people was trying to play their satellite vegetable torture shit, where the satellite man zaps you in the head and jolts you in the neck and jolts you in the face and burns your mouth and burns your face and teeth. And then the government says they didn't know that. But that's why that shit was outlawed. So we need somebody to show those documents when they had court cases about satellite torture crimes. These people always tried to focus on wealthy people or famous people or good-looking people that people said was cute or good-looking. Those are hate crimes. There's a satellite controller who kept communicating before saying he wanted to be who I am. I was born who I am, and I'm proud of who I am, and you don't have no right trying to be who I am. And if the government knows who that man is, the government is obligated to arrest them. I'm not giving nothing away to nobody. I'm the only child of my mother and father, and I'm the owner of my mother and father's mansions, yachts, airplanes, companies, buildings, skyscrapers, department stores, gas stations, grocery stores, convenience stores, novel. I don't know if I own any of those. I don't even know if I own any novelty stores. I have no clue. But I might. I don't know if I do. But anyways, I own all the companies, all the properties, all the businesses, all the TV networks, all the radio stations of my mother and father and grandparents forever. I'm the owner of all of it, and the newspapers too, of my mother and father and grandparents. It's my rights. Nobody has a right contradicting my ownership. You know what these people do? They see something that's valuable, and they see somebody that's valuable because of what they own, and then